Mr. Ajit. I used to think actually that solar power is very, very costly. And reason being, in 1998 I was privy to a conversation between CM Delhi and one technocrat. And where the issue came that it is costlier than therefore we cannot go for it. But he has given the presentation saying that it can even be made cheaper than the coal energy. And that's a concept changing, like for the general people like us, to understand that there are potentials, there are possibilities in the renewable field of energy. And Germany has 75% based on the renewable energy. We can also try perhaps in our country. But he has also told what are the challenges available. Thank you so much. Now, in the end, we have got Mr. Anil Sardana. He is CEO and Managing Director of Tata Power, 1980 batch electrical. He is one person who has experience in all the fields of power, whether it is generation, distribution, development, operation, engineering, procurement, construction, assignment in power sector. Versatile person. I request him to give his talk.
Thank you, Pranay. First and foremost, let me offer my apologies to all my friends who have been waiting for us to arrive. You can all appreciate that it was certainly beyond us, sitting at perhaps the same place for quite a long time. Coming very quickly to the power sector and to give you a good sort of overview of the sector, let me start on a very macro basis. Indian electricity economy is about $100 billion. Compared to that, United States, which has 1/4 of the population or 1/5 of the population, has $400 billion economy. The other part is that our $100 billion has been static for the last 7 years. It's not grown. Whereas on ground you've seen the assets growing, on ground you've seen a lot of people investing. So what's happening? What's wrong? Why our economy is not growing? It's for two reasons. Number one, some of the parameters have improved, therefore the consumption efficiencies have improved. The second aspect is 35% of India consumes 90% of electricity. And 65% of India consumes only 10% of electricity. So for those of us who are familiar with India and Bharat, Bharat consumes 10%, India consumes 90%. That we follow tremendous amount of fashion statement when it comes to investing in assets which look to be very, very nice. If somebody is trying to pay for my inefficiencies, let me invest. For last many years, since almost independence till about few years back, in this country, the public sector and the state-owned enterprise cherished on your and my money, because more you will invest, you will get 16% on that. So let me invest and let me at least, if nothing else, show on paper that I am investing more. If I invest more, I get 16% on that by way of a regulator prescribing that part. And therefore, this sector became the harbinger of inefficiencies. And the consumer, despite the fact that it may take a hit on the wallet, continued to pay out of its nose, never got 24/7 supply that somebody you were talking about. Now, from the economic consideration, we all know electricity is important, we all know growth is possible only if electricity is there. Let me give you another statistic. In this country, we have today say 275,000 megawatts of installed capacity. Not on any given day have we generated more than 140,000 megawatts. Then why do we crack? Why do we crib? If we have never generated more than 140,000 megawatt, we have so much of spinning reserves, what is our problem? So friends, the problem is that we have never looked at this sector holistically. We have never looked at it as an integrated sector. It's almost like a relay race. The relay race happens between shifts where people operate the sector, whether it is generation, whether it is transmission, whether it is distribution. That's one aspect. But it is also a relay race when it comes to generation passing to transmission, passing to distribution, passing to ultimate last mile. We've never looked at that part, and therefore, on a given day, either a distribution wire will not be on, or a transmission link will not be on, or a generator will not be on. And this combination, since as we all know, multiples less than 1, this multiplied will yield to a smaller number. We have had the dichotomia or the irony of the fact that 275,000 stays on paper, but 140,000 is all that we have extracted out of the system. The other interesting part that you need to understand is the fact that out of this 140,000 megawatt that the country has produced from generating sources, now we tend to increase that by the participation of different stakeholders. And fortunately, as I said, in the earlier times when the inefficiency used to be given through this return by virtue of the cost that was being spent, that has been changed, and over a period of time more competitive spirit has been added to this part. Now we talked about renewables. In this country, we swing from one end of the pendulum to the other end of the pendulum, as I said, more as a fashion statement. We want to add 175,000 megawatt of renewable capacity. Now assume for a minute, and Ashish talked about the fact, it's good for the country, even Karnal alluded to the fact that tariffs are coming down, good for the consumer. But what you need to understand, how will it work in Indian context? And I think we all need to be, as stakeholders, be very clear about the fact that 175,000 megawatt, assuming that it's a part of 500,000 megawatt at that time, the total capacity, will be as much as 33%. Now in a country when you have 33% dependent on when the wind will blow or when the sun will shine, you need to have a backup resource. So you don't have to contextually talk about only the cost of solar or wind, which certainly will come down even below, when the volumes set in, below the conventional power, no doubt about it. But what we need to understand is that's not enough. For every of the 175,000 megawatt, you will have to have a backup plan, because you can't tell the customer when the wind is not blowing or sun is not shining that don't expect the power to be delivered at this time. At that time, you have to have a backup resource. Now what happens in Germany? We talk about, we celebrate Germany, we celebrate Europe. They've done a commendable job. But what you need to understand, they have reservoir-based hydros and they have gas. And these two by characteristics are the one, the moment wind stops blowing, you have absolutely no time taken for a gas-based station to come up, or a hydro which is reservoir-based to come up. So the challenge that we have is, we have none of these two in this country. Neither we have gas, nor we have the reservoir-based hydros. And therefore, for us to get into this fashion part, we must understand what will be the onslaught when we have this part of generation. In addition, it's going to be a big challenge in terms of the grid people to manage when this power suddenly goes down, that how does the other power, other backup resources that will be brought on stream at that moment. So more of that to the experts who are dealing with the situation or grappling with the situation, because some politicians and some set of politicians love announcing these great statistics. Let's move from generation, having given you a macro perspective. We have challenges in transmission. Now fortunately many of you would have read in newspapers, we in last 2 years slammed the Coal India and said that the fuel is not available and therefore customers are not able to get power and therefore there are stranded assets. We were very fortunate in power sector that there were some whipping boys whom we could whip. Actually the problem lay in our own system in terms of transmission. We couldn't have transferred power from one end to the other even if we had power at that instant. Today when coal is available, we still have those issues of many of the hinterland people not seeing power for 4 hours, 6 hours. Those who live in city forget the fact that there is larger Bharat which lives out there where they see tremendous amount of power cuts. So there are big challenges of movement of power from a donor region to a recipient region. And this challenge, of course, is created by again the sector, because ultimate problem lies with the distribution companies. The distribution companies, the way the status exists, have never looked at customer as the center of focus of their deliverables. They have always had other challenges to manage, the political challenges to manage, the polity to manage, and perhaps many of the staff had to manage their own means and their vested interest. Last year, 2015, saw 70,000 crore of loss in distribution. That was not enough. Many of you may not know that we have our own Reserve Bank of India within the sector. There were close to 53,000 crore of what is called regulatory assets. What is this regulatory asset? You won't be able to understand, because many of us don't understand that either. But this is IOU. The regulator says, I owe you this money, like the RBI says on the note that I owe you this 10 rupees or I owe you 100 rupees. The regulator tells us, I owe you this 3,000 crore. But the customer pays out of its nose to the carrying cost of this regulatory asset. Many of you, since most of you live in Delhi, I just want to tell you that you pay as much as 60 paisa in disguise because of someone else's inefficiency, because the regulator created something called regulatory asset. Now all over India we have something which is mounting. Each year this Mount Everest is growing further, and the consumer in all over India basis pays 1 rupee of tariff on account of regulatory asset, which has got just the regulatory inefficiencies. Okay. Now this is the situation which is where we are getting from one cobweb to the other cobweb. But the basic treacherous issue which is there is people steal electricity, and most of the consumer end up paying for that inefficiency. There are very few states where the regulators have come very heavy to say, unless you reduce the loss, I will assume that you have collected the revenues. Okay? And I just want to tell you that as a professional who's handled a difficult place like Delhi, that there is no rocket science in reducing losses. There is enough technology which is available to reduce losses. And this case in point is available that there are 6 cities, and I want to name those cities. You take Gujarat, which is not necessarily managed by just private sector. So of course there is Ahmedabad Electric Company and Surat companies which are managed by private sector. But otherwise also the distribution companies which are managed by the state-owned enterprises are doing wonderfully well, and they have losses which are contained. Then you see city of Mumbai, now you see city of Delhi, one part where we have talked about we have less than 10% losses. You see Calcutta Electric Supply Company, again less than 10% losses. So there are examples within this country to prove that this is not a rocket science. And there are a lot of people who would say they don't have rural areas. And I want to crack this myth very clearly in everyone's mind as a professional, that this is a very handy excuse for people to sort of use time and over again to not reduce losses in cities, because the losses primarily happen in cities. It is the industrialists who steal electricity, and it is they who have vested interest to say, if I can gain 90% of my bill by paying 10% underhand, why should I have efficiencies built into the system? It's a fantastic efficiency because I can manage my means very easily. So therefore, friends, there are lots of states which have lots of rural issues. As I said, Bharat has a challenge. But to manage Bharat, we are not giving proper service in India itself. So if we can look after the city problem first. Take for example, Devinder Singh sitting here, he is one of our friends who manage a very difficult area. Haryana has tremendous amount of rural areas, but in Gurgaon they have reduced the losses which are less than 10%. So if they could do that, why other cities should not do it? And there are lots of cities that I can name, I don't want to name that, because otherwise we can go on till morning, which have losses which are much higher, but they are clearly through connivance. It's not necessary that they need to exist the way they are existing today. So I just want to close by saying, the closing remarks to say, it's a very technical savvy sector to manage. Technology can win the means We in Delhi have taken no confrontation with anyone but used technology extensively to reduce losses. Others have followed the similar way. Therefore, all across it can be managed, provided there is political will to manage this sector. People find it very nice to continue in the way it exists in many places, and it will continue to create problem for citizens, for the economy, as long as we do not correct the situation. And last part, which I mentioned in the opening statement, that the 35% of the urban India or the semi-urban India, which consumes the largest share of electricity, if we are able to first manage 24/7 on an uninterrupted basis, you will get at least 25% higher. So what I said, $100 billion economy, will reach $125 billion economy without any effort. And then, if you do Make in India program, and we have talked about this in terms of a detailed work plan with the Secretariat DIPP, which is running the Make in India program, that if you actually work on Make in India program, you get, now the last part that I want to cover, you can actually reach the per capita consumption per person per year, which is close to about 1,000 units in India, to the global average, which is 2,800. Now imagine our own neighbor, which is Bangladesh, which was in pittance 20 years back, today gets 24/7 supply. Their per capita consumption is about 2,000 units per person, and they have done a wonderful job in terms of how they have managed it in an integrated format. I think that's exactly what is needed in this country, and unless we look at that part to make sure that we will aim to reach 2,800, which is the global average, I think we will continue to do lip service, but never have customer really reap the harvest of what we have sown in the generation sector. I think we need to focus on the last mile, we need to focus in an integrated format. Thank you so much.
I must compliment Mr. Anil Sardana. Wonderful oration with contents. He really told what is lies with this system, and he also stressed that it can be improved. See, I remember when there were mechanical meters in Delhi, there were sets of people who were roaming around saying that you put your meter in the reverse direction. So now with the electronic meter, that situation has been resolved. So technology, he said, it is a technology which can help us. This is a will, political will which can help us, and people will which can help us. I now open it for question answer, but before that I'll request Professor Pradeep Kumar. He wanted to raise some question at the beginning. Sir.
Giving the government roadmap. I just query, because he has touched all the points, all the issues. It's just a query whether the government has taken care of the obsolescence of the existing. We have all the bird charts and whatever. But the important is whether the existing plants has been taken care of, that at 15, 20 or 30 years back old, with the new technology and whatever the maintenance is required, whether they are taken care in that roadmap. That is my query.
Yeah, all these things are being studied by the consultant, that how much from the existing stations or from the under construction station or from the obsolete stations, if they are to be scrapped on the same land, you can have much higher capacity available. So,
and is there a possibility of bridging the technological gap also?
yes, so old stations will be scrapped or